that's the crazy thing is when you say yes to God and you honestly are intentional about following his way, he really does guide your path in ways that you can never imagine. And when you reflect back at it, you're like, wow, God, you were there every single step of the way. My name is Wilita Sanguma, and I'm the founder of the Labiko Initiative. It's a ministry that's committed to transforming lives through hope and opportunity. I'm also a father to three beautiful children and a husband to a loving wife. But most importantly, I am a child of God, and that's where I find my identity, and that's where I find my truth. I originally grew up in Congo and loved my time there as a child. Loved the music, loved the culture, loved the hospitality, the food, the church. But I do have to admit, I was a little bit of a troublemaker when I was a kid, especially being a pastor's child. And I have to confess that sometimes, during Sunday school, my friends and I would ditch school or ditch Sunday school and go around the streets just looking for trouble. And one of the fun things that we would do when we were kid was to get rocks and throw it at beehives and run away as fast as we could because the person without a bee sting at the end was declared the winner. And so those are kind of just fun, silly games that we would play. I share that with you because those are moments that I cherish a lot when I was a kid. And that wasn't always the reality. And the moment where my life changed forever was on Christmas morning in 1998 when our church was bombed. And I can still remember the horror. I can remember the pain. I can remember the screaming, the fear. But that moment was just the beginning of what ended up being a tragic event and a really life altering event in our life. For that whole week, our community kept getting bombed. These are marketplaces, these are hotels, places where people gathered. There were just nonstop bombing. And so my mom one day said, you know what? We can't stay here anymore and we need to leave. So in the middle of the night, she woke us up, gave us our backpack, said, put all your belongings in here that you can carry. We're leaving this night. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and getting my clothes and whatever materials that I needed, put it in my small little school backpack. And I remember us just walking outside and just going towards the jungle. We didn't really know where we were going. And the first moments, you'll see different families, on the street as well. And then when we got to the main road, there's this huge exodus of people. And just it just reminded me of the Israelites, right? Escaping Egypt. That's really how it felt like when I watched those movies as a child or when I heard those stories. That's how it felt like. And we just kept walking all night and almost all morning, about 20 plus miles until we came into this one village. And the man that was a pastor in that village recognized my mother and recognized us. And she said, hey, are you Sabuli Sanguma? Are you Mosai's wife? And he recognized our family because he went to grade school with my father. And so we, in this middle of a jungle, in this small village, we found refuge where this man and his community opened their homes for us, where we can find refuge and escape the war that was happening. And so that ended up being our home in the jungle for about 3 months while we were trying to escape the war. But every day, it felt like the war got closer and closer and closer. Machine guns got louder, the rocket flares got brighter, and just more casualties. We just kept seeing more soldiers being carried through the villages where we just saw the reality of the war. And it just felt like we were inside of it. And my mom made this heroic choice of, listen, if we stay here, we're going to die. If we decide to leave, we're most likely going to die. And so I rather try to escape and die versus just let the war come and consume us. And so we decided to pack our stuff again and go back into the city where the war was really intense and the bombing was intense and try to find a way to actually escape the country all together. And so we went back to our city, which is called Gemina. And from there were a lot of trucks carrying goods outside of the country during that time. So we actually paid this man that was driving the truck to pretend that, we were his family and we can get in the truck and try to escape. Now, the journey from where we are in Gemina to Central African Republic takes about 8 hours or so of um, driving. But this journey to escape the country took us about a week. And I would say that that experience is probably one of the worst experiences in my life. We were exposed to things that you cannot imagine what people can do to each other. I don't think anyone should see the things that I saw as a 10-year-old, let alone even as a 35-year-old now. I don't ever want to see what I saw on that journey of people being beaten nearly to death, of seeing families burned on the ground as if there were as if there were nothing, and seeing villages completely burned down. And um, that was the reality that we experienced. And for me, I was like, God, how can you allow these things to happen? You know, we learned so much about you and how you are filled with grace and love and compassion. And um, how can you do such thing? I understand if it was just soldiers, but these are kids my age or even younger than me. Like, what did they deserve to be burned to the ground without remorse, and their homes to be destroyed? And so that really, I would say, messed me up. And even when we escaped, by the grace of God, we escaped that war and found refuge in Central African Republic, and went on to eventually coming to the United States. That experience, that week journey, more than anything, the bombing, all those things that we escaped was nothing but that experience, and seeing that reality really changed my life and my perspective of the world in a very negative way. But despite all that, despite the darkest time of my life, I'm just so glad to know God, even though I questioned him at that age, and questioned him for a long time as well too. Um, I just see how he's always been there for me. And one of the example is that when we came and we found refuge here in the United States, after my father finished his education in theology, and they decided to actually go back to Congo, to minister to the region, to provide peace and stability to a region that was just, destroyed by conflict and war for so long. And during that time, I was 13. I was a teenager, and I told my parents, you can go back, but I'm not going back. I'm never going to go back. I hated the country. I hated my experience. I wanted to do nothing with Congo. And I told them, listen, I'm going to live in the streets. I'm going to do whatever to do. I'm a survivor. I survived that war. I survived that experience. I'm not going back. I don't want to go back. Please don't force me to go back. I will run away. One family who I've hardly met, I think we met for like 30 minutes because their church was supporting us and decided to give us some Christmas gifts. And so this family drove down from the Bay Area and gave us some gifts, and we spent time with them for 30 minutes. And that was the only time that I ever met this family. And this family not only invited me to live with them, but they treated me like their own. They loved me as their own. They pushed me to excel in school, and they treated me like their own. This family had three little kids, right? They made me a big brother to three little kids that I was able to take care of and to be part of their lives. And they introduced me to a life that I could never imagine, a life of, I would say, even luxury, that I'm coming from Congo to our experience in Pasadena to then now living with them in the Bay Area. This family transformed my life forever. And I didn't realize that until I was in college. And in college, I was trying to figure out who I was, as many people do. Why God? Why me? Why am I alive? You know, when the bomb came, why did you spare my life in those jungle? Why was I still alive? When we were trying to escape the country with all those machine guns pointed at our faces, why didn't they pull the trigger? Like, why am I still alive, Lord? And the epiphany that I had was that, God has blessed us with so much. And the gift that God has blessed us with, as ordinary as we can be, we can do extraordinary things with the gift that God has given us. You can do extraordinary things in a negative way, like my experience with the war, or you can do an extraordinary thing in a beautiful way, like the family that welcomed me into their home and took care of me and treated me as their own. And because of that love, it transformed my life and is impacted me and the person that I am today. And even the ministry that I do today is because of them. It's because they found someone that was struggling, that was desperate, that was in need, and they show that person love and they show that person compassion and they provided that person with an opportunity and they give that person hope that they did not have before. And because of those offering and those generosity that they gave to me really transformed my life. And in college, just having that epiphany just made me change what I wanted to do. And I made the choice, Wilita. You can continue to be bitter, you can hate the world, you can woe is me, why did this happen to me? Or you can use that experience, the negative and the positive, to try to make an impact in this world. And so what are you going to do? And from that moment on, I decided to just change how I saw the world. I dedicated my studies, I dedicated my profession into being a positive impact into this world. As ordinary as I am, I want to have extraordinary impact in this world. And I think one key aspect that really helped me was during my junior and senior year, I was involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes at Fresno State University. And that really helped me a lot because that was the first time where it actually allowed me to share my testimony with other um, college students, with other high school students, to really mentor to them. And at first, it was very surface level. I just talked about, oh, in high school, I used to play soccer. I injured myself and I couldn't. And how did I have to rely on God? It was very surface level to a place where I started sharing, no, this is who I am. These are the experiences that I experienced as a child and as a teenager. And this is what God has done through me and through my life. And being able to do those, sharing my testimony with college students and with high school students, that really, really started to kind of transform the way that I started to see how God has been there every step of the way. From the church bombing, I just had a completely different reflection, right? Whereas before it was like, God, why? Where were you? Why would you do in this thing? To, wow, God, I saw you there 2 years ago, where I kind of had to come to the understanding, the acceptance of it is like, I see what you were doing, God. I see that. And I feel like you've been preparing me to do something, to do your work for a long time. You've given these experiences of disparity, of hardship, of pain, but you've also given me this experience of love and of joy and of generosity and of kindness and of your love and what that actually looks like. And so, what do you want me to do with this, Lord? Right. And so I started having a lot of that tension. And I'm not going to lie, I've been really scared. You're right. Like having that type of tension because when you're prepared that way, when you see God's presence that way, it's hard to live a different way. To me personally, it's really hard. I cannot live a different way. And I really felt that. And that all came into realization about 2 years ago when I decided to quit my job, a well paying, comfortable job, prestigious job, and saying, I'm going to pursue Lobico on a full time scale. And I don't know, we don't have the financial resources, we don't have any of those different things, but I trust you, God. And I know that you are calling me, and I know that this is the time for me to do this particular work. And so there's just a lot of different moments that I've seen God in my life and how He's shaped me to do the work that I'm doing right now through Him. Something that was always a blocker for me and a fear that I had in deciding to commit full time was this concept of, it's not just me anymore. I have a wife and I have 3 kids. And I lived a life of not wealth, right? Coming from Congo, and even when we were in Pasadena, I remember we used to go out and like get the cans and smash the cans and go to the 99-cent store and sell the cans so that we can have some type of money. Like that's the life that I lived. And I lived like that for a long time. And a part of me also hated it why can't I just have a normal life like everyone else, you know? Kids have Jordans on, you know, like in Pasadena, like why can't I just have that life? And and I hated it. And so one of the fears that I had is, oh, Wilita, are you doing the same thing to your kids? Are you going to be exposing your kids to the same type of reality? And so this sense of like having what would be considered financial freedom, right? Like this concept of financial freedom, like you're gonna leave all that away and like now what are you gonna do with your kids, right? Like if they want to do something, how are you gonna do it? Where is it gonna come from? And you know, we took that step anyways. And for the outside world, our decision is 100% stupid. It is 100% stupid. Like it's like what you should definitely not do. But we did it anyways, and it's so funny. 3 weeks ago, I was just stressing out. I was like, Brittany, I don't know how we're going to do this. Financially, we're really struggling, and I'm just like, oh God, like I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And then I look in my email, and there's one of our, you know, supporters that's always supported the children's center and everything else like that. It's like, hey, you know, Lita, I've been praying, and I feel like God has put it in my heart that I want to just give you this money. And I just started to cry. And then I decided to call her, and I explained to her, like, you would not believe this. I was stressing, I was crying, I didn't know what we were going to do. And I was, how am I going to bring this up to my wife and talk about this? And then I receive your email, and you're going to send the amount that we actually need. And you know what she told me? She said, it's funny that you're going through that. And I'm glad that that helps. I felt like God was just putting that in my heart to give to you. I don't know why, but I was praying, and that's what God did. When I was growing up as well too, we had to depend on the Lord. Some days, literally, we will get the financial means that we needed just so that we can survive. And her telling me that, I just cried. I didn't know what else. I was a hot mess again. I was such a mess crying. Like I didn't know what to say. But like that experience just continued to remind me that, listen, God is there. That is one miracle that God did in a very superficial way, if you really look at it, because that's so small, you know, in the grand scheme of things that God has done in my life. But that was a powerful reminder that no matter how small or how big, I have you. And you know what? You're going to struggle. You're going to do all those different things, but just trust in me that I have you. When you look at many of the characters and the people in the Bible, right, that has had transformative change, they were all ordinary people. They were all, or none of them were extraordinary. If you take Jesus out of the equation, right, none of them were extraordinary. They were all ordinary people. And the reason why they did extraordinary things is because they said yes to God, right? They said, yes, I'm going to follow you and I'm going to do what you tell me to do. And I personally believe that as ordinary as I am, if I say yes to God and I say yes to his calling, I know that I can do extraordinary things because that is him working through me. And that is the message that I try to share with people as well too. And even with Labico, that's the message that I try to share. As ordinary as we can, through God, we can do extraordinary things. And I've seen that firsthand.